Saint Thérèse explained why Mary cannot help a heart that refuses to forgive. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux always said that Mary runs to every soul that calls her, but she also warned of a truth far more difficult to accept. There is one thing even the Mother of God cannot enter, a heart that refuses to forgive. Thérèse learned this not from books, not from theology, but from an experience so painful, so luminous, that she carried its lesson her entire short life. She said Mary is like a mother tending wounds, but the soul must at least open the door, even if only a little. A clenched heart, she said, is like a closed fist. No grace can be placed into it. The vision came to Thérèse during prayer in the quiet of the Carmelite chapel. The candles burned low, the air still, the silence deep enough to feel its weight. She had been praying for a woman she knew, a woman who carried resentment like a shield, who repeated old hurts to herself until they became her identity. Thérèse asked Mary to heal her. That was when the chapel changed. The air grew luminous, not bright, but soft like dawn. And Thérèse felt a presence beside her, gentle, maternal, unmistakable. Mary's sorrow filled the room like perfume, not anger, not disappointment, sorrow. Thérèse felt Mary's gaze drift toward a vision forming before them, the soul of the woman she was praying for. She stood alone, arms crossed tightly, her face hardened by years of wounds she refused to release. Around her, invisible chains wrapped her heart, forged from every grudge, every injury she had replayed, every memory she had refused to surrender to God. Mary stepped toward her, but the moment she did, the woman's heart recoiled like a flame touched by water. A spiritual force pushed Mary back, not hatred but refusal. Thérèse gasped. She had never seen anything resist Mary. Mary looked at Thérèse with a sadness deeper than tears. "My child," she whispered into Thérèse's soul, "I can heal every wound, but I cannot enter where forgiveness is denied." Then she revealed the truth. A heart that clings to resentment builds its own walls. Heaven will not force them down. Grace waits. Mercy knocks. But the door opens only when the soul chooses to forgive, even imperfectly, even tremblingly. Thérèse fell to her knees as the vision deepened, showing the woman's heart clenched like a stone. The chains around it glowed darkly, tightened by every memory she kept alive out of fear, pride, or pain. Mary reached out her hand again. Nothing moved. The woman's heart would not open, and that was the beginning of Thérèse's greatest spiritual lesson. The vision pulled Thérèse deeper, as though Mary wanted her to understand not only what refusal looks like, but what it does to a soul. The woman stood frozen in the center of a dim, quiet space, neither hell nor purgatory, but a spiritual landscape shaped entirely by the state of her heart. It was a place created not by punishment, but by choice. Mary stepped forward again, her presence radiating the gentlest warmth, the warmth of a mother approaching a wounded child. Yet again, the soul flinched instinctively. Thérèse watched in astonishment as the woman wrapped her arms tighter around herself, as if guarding her own pain from being touched. The truth struck Thérèse with force. Some people protect their wounds more fiercely than their salvation. Mary looked at Thérèse softly, as if confirming the thought. The woman's heart pulsed with images, memories she held like weapons and shields at the same time. The vision made them visible. A harsh word spoken years ago, a betrayal real or imagined, a family argument that never healed, moments where she had been wronged, moments where she had wronged others but refused to admit it. Each memory hovered around her like burning embers. She clutched them, replayed them, defined herself by them. Thérèse realized that unforgiveness is not a chain placed on the soul by others. It is a chain a soul tightens around itself. Mary approached once more, and this time Thérèse saw something incredible. Mary wasn't trying to take away the woman's pain. She was trying to transform it. But transformation requires surrender. The woman refused. Thérèse felt that refusal like a wind pushing back against her chest. The refusal was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, familiar, the same stubbornness Thérèse had seen in countless souls, even in herself. "I won't forgive unless they apologize first. They don't deserve it. I'll forgive someday, just not today." What they did was too big. If I let go, I'll lose my dignity. Each phrase became another layer of stone around the woman's heart. Mary turned to Thérèse and allowed her to feel something. The ache inside the woman's soul, it wasn't hatred, it was fear. Fear of being vulnerable again, fear of being hurt again, fear of losing control. Forgiveness felt like surrender, and surrender terrified her. Mary whispered, "My child, even God himself respects the freedom of the heart. If a soul will not open, love cannot enter. I wait, I knock, but I do not force." The woman stood in silence, surrounded by chains she believed were protections, unaware they were actually prisons. Thérèse understood. Unforgiveness isn't a barrier God creates. It's a barrier the soul refuses to dismantle. The scene around them darkened, not with evil, but with the heavy dimness of a soul that has carried resentment for too long. Thérèse felt the atmosphere grow thick, as though the very air mourned for what the woman was losing by refusing to forgive. The woman's silhouette trembled faintly, not from humility, but from the effort of holding her heart closed. Mary stood before her, radiant yet sorrowful, her hands extended in an invitation that could have healed everything in a single instant. But grace cannot heal what it is not permitted to touch. Thérèse watched closely, trying to understand why the woman clung so desperately to her pain. Then Mary allowed Thérèse to see deeper, beneath the woman's exterior hardness, beneath the bitterness, beneath the anger. And Thérèse finally understood. Unforgiveness had become the woman's identity. She no longer knew who she would be without it. Suddenly, a memory manifested with clarity sharper than the others. The woman stood in her kitchen years earlier, replaying a hurtful moment for the 1,000th time, refreshing the wound like someone reopening a scar. Her heart hardened as she whispered, "I'll never forget what they did." And with every repetition, the memory became heavier, thicker, more poisonous. It wasn't the event that imprisoned her. It was the story she repeated about it. Back in the vision, the chain around her heart tightened. Mary stepped closer again, her light touching the memory gently. And for a moment, just a moment, the woman's heart flickered. The chains trembled. Some tiny part of her wanted release. But then another memory surfaced. A moment of humiliation, a careless insult, a betrayal, and the heart snapped shut again like a door slammed from the inside. Thérèse felt her own chest ache. The woman wasn't defending righteousness. She was defending her wounded pride. Mary's voice echoed softly. Many souls believe forgiveness is a favor for others, but forgiveness is the healing of one's own heart. The woman shook her head, stepping backward, as though terrified of losing the anger that had sustained her for so long. She whispered, "If I forgive, it means they win." Thérèse felt a shock go through her. She had heard countless souls say the same. Mary responded gently, "No, child. When you forgive, sin loses." But the woman didn't hear it. Her heart was locked in an old pattern, hurts replayed, pride reinforced, forgiveness postponed again and again, until eventually she forgot how to forgive at all. And that was the tragedy Thérèse now saw. Not that Mary refused to help, but that the woman refused to let her. Grace was there, mercy was there, healing was there. But the door remained closed from the inside. Thérèse felt the space around them shift again, but this time it wasn't darkness descending. It was clarity, a clarity so sharp it felt like a blade cutting through the fog of the woman's excuses and self-defenses. Mary wanted Thérèse to understand not just what unforgiveness looks like, but what it does to the soul over time. The woman's heart was now fully visible, spiritually, not physically. It looked like a locked room boarded from the inside, with faint wounds glowing beneath the surface. Every hurt she refused to forgive had become a plank nailed across the door. Every grudge added another chain. The heart had become a fortress, and like all fortresses it had turned into a prison. Mary knelt beside the woman, not above her, not imposing, but low, gentle, maternal. Her humility made the scene ache with beauty. She placed her hand near the woman's heart, but not touching it, because she could not enter without permission. The woman flinched anyway. Thérèse saw something surprising. The woman wasn't pushing Mary away out of hatred. She was pushing her away out of habit. Years of replaying the same pain had carved grooves in her soul, like a river cutting stone. She had lived inside her resentment so long that anything resembling healing felt foreign, even frightening. Then the vision intensified. Mary allowed Thérèse to hear the woman's interior voice, not spoken but felt. If I forgive, who will protect me? If I let this go, what keeps me strong? If I release this pain, what will I hold on to? If I stop being angry, what keeps me alive? Thérèse felt tears burn in her eyes. The woman wasn't clinging to hatred. She was clinging to fear disguised as anger. Mary whispered, "My child, forgiveness is not the release of justice. It is the release of fear." The words passed through the space like a wind of light. The woman's heart flickered again, just barely, but then tightened, retreating into itself. She shook her head, trembling, as if the very thought of forgiving reopened old wounds she had spent years trying to hide beneath hardness. Thérèse watched in sorrow as the walls around the heart grew thicker in response. And then Mary revealed something more painful, more heartbreaking. The woman's unforgiveness did not only block healing. It blocked love, all love, from others, from herself, even from God. For love cannot enter where a soul refuses to let go of the past. Thérèse whispered through tears, "Mother, what will become of her?" Mary's eyes shone with deep, aching compassion. "I wait. I always wait. But heaven cannot heal what the soul refuses to surrender." The woman remained frozen, locked inside wounds she confused for identity, and Thérèse finally understood. Unforgiveness is not something God punishes. It is something the soul chooses, until it realizes the choice is killing it. The vision deepened, and Thérèse felt Mary drawing her closer, not to comfort her, but to teach her something the world rarely understands. Unforgiveness does not remain a wound. It becomes a way of seeing. The space around the woman shifted into a landscape shaped entirely by her heart. Her memories formed walls around her. Her fears shaped the air. Her wounds colored the light. Thérèse realized that a soul who refuses to forgive does not simply carry resentment. It eventually lives inside it. Mary lifted her hand, and the room filled with a soft blue light. It revealed the woman's inner world in greater detail. Thérèse gasped. Every memory of hurt replayed in a loop, circling her like shadows repeating the same scene endlessly. They whispered the same sentences she had told herself through the years. "She hurt me. He betrayed me. They should suffer like I did. I won't let it go." Each whisper struck the woman's heart like a drop of cold rain, reinforcing the chains. What shocked Thérèse most was that the memories no longer resembled reality. They had been reshaped by bitterness, distorted, sharpened by time. Unforgiveness had rewritten the woman's story. Mary spoke softly. "When a heart refuses to forgive, it cannot see truth. It sees only wounds." The words settled like a weight on Thérèse's soul. Then Mary showed her something even more devastating. The woman's daughter, or perhaps a friend, perhaps a sibling, appeared in a memory. She had come years earlier attempting reconciliation, her hands trembling, her voice uncertain. She had apologized sincerely, but the woman had dismissed her, clinging to the old hurt instead of receiving the peace offered to her. Thérèse saw the truth. The woman had not been denied love. She had refused it. Unforgiveness had become her armor, but in wearing it she had kept everyone at a distance, then convinced herself she was alone because others stopped trying. Mary's eyes filled with quiet pain. Many souls believe they are victims, when in truth they have locked themselves away. The scene shifted again. This time Thérèse saw the final years of the woman's life. She had become isolated, not by circumstance but by her own choices. People had attempted reconciliation. She turned them away. People had tried to care. She doubted their sincerity. She told herself she didn't need anyone. But in reality, she had built a life made of walls, a life Mary could not enter. Thérèse felt her heart clench. she whispered. Mother, does unforgiveness truly separate a soul from heaven? Mary touched Thérèse's cheek gently. Not by God's choice, my child, but by the soul's refusal to resemble him. The truth struck like lightning. A heart closed to forgiveness is a heart closed to grace. And grace cannot reside where love is not permitted. The vision shifted again, and this time Mary brought Thérèse closer, not to observe the woman from a distance, but to let her feel the interior weight of the woman's heart. Thérèse hesitated. She sensed the heaviness, the density, the suffocating atmosphere within that heart. But Mary touched her arm gently. Do not fear. I want you to understand why forgiveness is the doorway of heaven. Then it happened. Thérèse entered, not physically but spiritually, the emotional landscape of the woman's heart. And the moment she did, her breath caught. The place was dark, but not with evil. It was dark with self-protection. Every wall was built from memories she refused to release. Every shadow was a moment she replayed over and over, until resentment shaped her identity. And the silence. The silence was agonizing. It was the silence of a soul that had pushed away every voice that tried to bring light. Thérèse felt the woman's inner thoughts echoing through the chamber. If I forgive, they'll think what they did was acceptable. If I let go, I lose my strength. If I stop holding on, I'll be vulnerable again. If I soften, they can hurt me again. Thérèse cried. For the first time she understood something profound. Some souls do not hate others. They simply do not know how to stop hurting. And unforgiveness becomes a way to stay defended. Mary's voice reached her softly. A wounded heart builds walls instead of bridges, but walls block healing. Then Mary showed Thérèse something that shook her deeply. In the center of the woman's heart was a tiny flame, a spark of goodness, longing, tenderness. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat buried beneath layers of stone. This was the woman's true self, but it was suffocating. Thérèse realized what Mary wanted her to see. Forgiveness is not something the woman was incapable of. It was something she had buried beneath fear, pride, and pain. Mary stepped forward and extended her hand once more toward that tiny flame. The flame flickered, longing, trembling, almost responding. For a moment, Thérèse hoped the woman would surrender. But then the memories around the heart roared to life again, overwhelming the little flame. Moments of betrayal, words said in anger, hurts carried for decades, misunderstandings replayed until they felt like truth. The flame shrank. Mary lowered her hand slowly, not in defeat, in respect. My child, she whispered, healing cannot be forced. Love must be welcomed. Thérèse felt her own heart twist. The woman wasn't evil. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't malicious. She was simply trapped inside her pain, mistaking it for strength. Mary turned to Thérèse and revealed the lesson in a single sentence. A heart that refuses to forgive becomes a heart I cannot reach, even when I stand right beside it. Mary led Thérèse out of the woman's interior world and back into the vision's spiritual chamber. The woman still stood there, arms locked around herself, holding her pain as if it were the last thing keeping her upright. Her eyes were open, but they saw nothing beyond the old hurt that consumed her. Thérèse felt the heaviness in the air thicken. The realm itself seemed to mourn the spiritual truth unfolding before her. Unforgiveness does not imprison the guilty. It imprisons the one who refuses to forgive. Mary gazed upon the woman with a sorrow so deep it felt like a mother watching her child cling to a burning coal, refusing to release it even as it scorches her hands. Thérèse wanted to run to the woman, to shake her, to plead with her. Let go, just let go, you'll be free. But Mary placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. My child, love can invite, but it cannot invade. Then Mary revealed something that made Thérèse's heart tremble. The woman's unforgiveness did not only block grace from entering, it also blocked grace from leaving. Every grace Mary had tried to give her over the years, small consolations, movements of tenderness toward others, moments where the heart felt the slightest pull toward reconciliation, were trapped, unable to flow beyond the walls the woman had built. Grace wants to move through a heart, not only to it, but hers was sealed shut. Mary whispered, "A heart that refuses to forgive becomes a stagnant pool. Love enters, but it cannot circulate. And where love cannot move, it cannot transform." Thérèse watched the woman's memories circle her again, this time more slowly, like shadows fading. Many of the events she held on to had happened years ago. Some were small misunderstandings, some were real wounds, but they all carried the same spiritual cost. They kept her stuck, they kept her small, they kept her unable to receive heaven. Then the vision grew sharper, revealing something Thérèse had never considered. Unforgiveness had changed the woman's identity, not in God's eyes, but in her own. She no longer saw herself as a beloved daughter of God. She saw herself as a victim of her past. She no longer saw herself as someone capable of love. She saw herself as someone who had been wronged. She no longer saw the possibility of healing. She saw only the memory of pain. Mary stepped closer and spoke the truth gently. "Many souls ask me for peace while holding tightly to the very thing that destroys it." Thérèse lowered her head. She realized the tragedy. The woman was waiting for healing while refusing the only path that leads to it, forgiveness. Mary lifted her hand, and the atmosphere changed again. Not darker, not brighter, just truer. It was as if every illusion, every self-justification, every emotional fog the woman hid behind was gently peeled away. Thérèse felt truth settling into the chamber with the weight of eternity. This was the moment Mary wanted her to see. The woman stood trembling, still guarding her heart tightly, but something new appeared behind her. A door of light. It was small, barely open, like a crack in a long sealed window. Through it came a faint warmth, a whisper of peace. Thérèse gasped. Even this woman, so closed, so wounded, so resistant, had a door to heaven. Every soul does, but the door opens from the inside. Mary motioned toward the faint light. "This is the grace she has refused," she said softly. Thérèse watched the woman turn slightly, sensing the presence behind her. Her shoulders shifted, her breath trembled. For the first time she seemed to feel the invitation, the possibility, the hope. And then she turned away. The crack of light dimmed. Her heart shuttered again. The door closed. Mary's eyes filled with sorrow, but not surprise. She had seen this countless times. Unforgiveness does not only reject healing, it rejects heaven's language, the language of mercy. Thérèse felt a deep ache in her chest. She whispered, "Mother, why won't she open?" Mary answered with the simplest, most devastating truth. Because she believes forgiveness means agreeing with the one who hurt her, but forgiveness means agreeing with God. The words struck like thunder, quiet, soft, but unmistakable. The woman was not rejecting love. She was rejecting misunderstanding. She thought forgiving meant erasing the injustice. Mary knew forgiving meant releasing the chain that tied her to it. Thérèse watched as the memories around the woman darkened again. Not violently, just heavily, like storm clouds forming over a landscape. They pressed against her, weighed her down, wrapped themselves tighter around her heart. Mary approached gently and placed her hand near them. The memories flickered, weakening under her presence. For a moment, Thérèse hoped. But again, the woman recoiled. The resentment rose in her like armor reforming itself. Mary whispered, "A wound can only heal when the soul allows me to touch it." Another revelation emerged, one that chilled Thérèse. As long as the woman refused to forgive, her heart could not resemble the heart of heaven, and a soul cannot enter what it does not resemble. It wasn't that Mary rejected her, it was that the woman rejected the transformation required to enter God's peace. Thérèse finally understood the full tragedy. Mary can guide any soul, but she cannot guide a soul that refuses to move. The chamber grew impossibly still, the stillness that comes not before a storm, but before a revelation. Mary and Thérèse stood before the woman, who now looked smaller, more fragile, more isolated inside her self-made fortress. The chains around her heart no longer glowed with defiance, but with exhaustion. Unforgiveness had not just hardened her, it had weakened her. Mary lifted her gaze toward Thérèse, and the young saint felt the invitation. Look deeper. And suddenly Thérèse saw the woman's life spread out like a tapestry of choices. Every refusal to forgive was a thread. Every unspoken apology she withheld, every grudge she fed, every moment she replayed with bitterness. They formed a pattern more devastating than any single sin. Unforgiveness had shaped her destiny. The woman had prayed throughout her life, prayed for peace, prayed for comfort, prayed for closeness to God. But her prayers had always returned to her unanswered, not because God ignored them, but because her heart was a closed vessel. Grace had tried to enter 1,000 times, but no opening was found. Mary's voice echoed gently. Grace pours like rain, but the soul must lift the cup. Thérèse saw what Mary meant. God never denied the woman consolation. The woman denied herself the ability to receive it. The vision shifted again. Now Thérèse witnessed the moment of the woman's death. The woman lay on her bed, weary, frightened, clutching the final hours of her life with trembling hands. Mary had been there, as she always is. Grace had been there, ready, waiting, abundant. But the woman's heart, still holding on to old hurts, would not open enough to receive the final peace offered to her. She had lived closed, and she died closed. Thérèse felt tears run down her face. Mary whispered, "When a heart refuses to forgive, it refuses the very mercy it prays for." In the vision, the woman turned in the spiritual chamber, searching desperately for comfort. But her arms remained crossed, her posture defensive. She wanted healing, without surrender. She wanted peace, without humility. She wanted heaven, without resemblance to heaven. And heaven cannot be entered with a heart shaped by resentment. Then Mary revealed the most profound truth of the entire vision. The woman's suffering was not the punishment of God. It was the consequence of her refusal to become who she was created to be. A heart made for love cannot hold hatred without tearing itself apart. Thérèse watched the woman's chains tighten, not because Mary tightened them, but because she did. Every time she clung to the past, instead of releasing it. Mary's voice broke the silence. Forgiveness is not something I demand. It is something the soul needs in order to breathe. Thérèse felt the full weight of the tragedy. The woman wasn't lost. She was stuck. Held in place by wounds she refused to open to grace. The chamber trembled with a soft, trembling light, as if heaven itself were leaning closer, waiting to see whether the woman's heart would finally open. Thérèse felt a hush fall over the spiritual realm, not of fear but of an immense aching hope. Mary stepped toward the woman one final time, not as a queen, not as a distant figure of glory, but as a mother, gentle, patient, longing to heal her child. She extended her hand. She whispered the woman's name. She invited her not to forget the wound, but to surrender it. For a moment, Thérèse felt the air shift. The woman's eyes softened. Her arms loosened slightly. The chains trembled, as if they sensed the possibility of breaking. A single crack appeared across her heart. Hope surged in Thérèse. She whispered under her breath, "Yes, yes, that's it. Just open a little." But then a memory surfaced, unbidden, sharp, familiar. A moment of betrayal, a comment spoken in anger, a wound she had replayed 1,000 times. The woman's face tightened. Her arms closed again. The crack sealed. The light withdrew. Mary stepped back, not in anger, not in disappointment, but in deep maternal sorrow. She whispered, "A heart that refuses to forgive keeps itself outside of what it longs for." Thérèse felt those words pierce her soul. In the woman's eyes appeared the same question countless souls ask, "Why can't I feel peace?" The answer hovered in the air like a truth too gentle to force. Because peace cannot exist where bitterness is deliberately kept alive. Mary turned toward Thérèse and revealed the final lesson, the one she wanted the young saint to carry into her own mission. "I can console every sorrow, heal every wound, lift every soul, but not a heart that will not open. Not a heart that chooses to cling to pain instead of surrendering it. Forgiveness is the key the soul must place in my hands." The chamber dimmed. The woman remained standing in her self-built prison, wrapped in memories she believed protected her, but which in truth kept her separated from the freedom she begged God for. Mary raised her eyes toward heaven. "Pray for souls like her," she said softly, "for they suffer not by my abandonment, but by their own refusal to let themselves be loved." The vision dissolved into a glow of soft blue light. Thérèse found herself back in the Carmelite chapel, tears streaming down her face, her rosary clutched tightly in her hands. She understood now, more deeply than ever, that forgiveness was not a command, but a lifeline, a liberation, a divine exchange that opens the heart to grace. And she whispered a prayer that would echo through her entire life. "Mary, teach me to forgive quickly, so I may never close my heart to your touch."